Listen, thanks everybody for being here today. I'm really pleased to talk to you about Japan Gold. For those of you that aren't familiar with the story or our company, we are in Japan, solely focused there, and we're only focused on gold. Here are our forward-looking statements for your review. So a lot of people say, well, why Japan? Because Japan isn't a familiar jurisdiction for many people. Japan is one of the most geopolitically safe countries in the world. But beyond that, it has a real rich legacy of high-grade gold mining going right back to the 7th century. But it also has a peculiarity in that the gold mines that came out of that whole phase, by 1943, and there were 76 of them, they were all closed in 1943 by the government in the midst of the Second World War. And after the Second World War, those 76 gold mines, only 12 of them reopened, 64 remained closed. They closed the mines to take the miners and reallocate them to base metal mines and to factories. So that was really the program. And after the war, the whole Japanese government sentiment changed. Exploration became extremely risky, and the mining companies and trading houses were incented to go abroad and start bringing natural resources back to the country. And over several decades, there came this view that there was nothing left to be found in Japan in any event. So that was sort of the history. The unique thing for us was that there were several ensuing factors. Number one, the Japanese government kept very detailed records of all the mines that were closed, and they were very comprehensive and very, very accurate records. And moving on with the chronology, in 1981, the only party in Japan that was looking around the country was in the southern island of Kyushu, and I'm going to look at that in just a moment. Actually, I'll go back to this in a second. They were looking around the southern island of Kyushu on some Sumitomo metal mining ground, and ultimately they were exploring. They drilled a shallow hole just 200 meters through the volcanic sequence to the basement, and they identified one of the richest discoveries in the world called the Hishikari gold mine. So we'll just move on here and have a little look-see. So after the Hishikari gold mine was discovered, there was still no changes in the exploration sentiment in Japan until 2012. And at that time, in 2012, that's when the mining law changed for the first time in the country's history to allow foreign companies to come into Japan and to hold prospecting rights 100% or mining rights to become miners. And Japan Gold was the first company in the world to go into Japan on that basis. So first mover advantage, absolutely. We got complete access to the Japanese government database. We ended up studying the country for 2 years, all the historic mines, where they were located, their settings. And we also looked very carefully at the low sulfidation epithermal gold mines, which were the mines that we were hoping to track down. And so once we got an understanding of that, we also were quite active in the permitting process that was becoming designed and into play in Japan. And we were able to provide some good input on that permitting process to come up with one of the most robust permitting systems in the world. So with all those things combining, after 2 years of effort, we started applying for our first major areas in the country. And we ended up with our first 12 projects. And those 12 projects, scattered across the country, cover over 42 of the 64 high-grade gold mines that were closed in 1943. Here we are in Japan. Japan, as a country, is about 1,800 miles from north to south. It has 3 main islands: Hokkaido in the north. Let's see, there we are. Hokkaido in the north, Honshu, which is this long island in the middle, and Kyushu, which is the island in the south. Tokyo is this spot here, where more people than Canada live. And the areas that are highlighted on this map are the areas where the 76 gold mines were producing up to 1943. We've determined that this area was mined out, this mine was closed and is becoming a World Heritage Site. So our focus really became Kyushu and Hokkaido. And those two islands are very rural, and so part of the reason of the change in the mining law was because of the economic redevelopment that the government wanted to embark on in those rural areas where the demographics were even shrinking further. People were migrating out of small towns into larger towns. There's lots of ghost towns, and really not a lot of economic stimulus. So mining is one of the new ways to go there. These are just very quickly, this is just a quick snapshot of the 12 mines that reopened after the war, and I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here. But they just show the number of ounces in the first column. The second column is the grade. The third column just shows you that they were all over Japan, and the last one shows you that they were closed by the mid-1970s. This is the Hishikari Mine. It was this incredible mine that was discovered down in Kyushu. You can see on this bottom picture, there's a little fellow standing here beside a vein. These are low sulfidation epithermal gold targets, and they've mined 7.6 million ounces to date from the Hishikari mine. They still have remaining reserves unpublished of in excess of 5 million ounces, so it's a wonderful endowment for that area of Japan. This map shows the 24 projects that we have in the country, and there's a concentration in Hokkaido, one project on Honshu, and then the bulk of our new acquisitions, so we have 12 new projects now, and the bulk of those are in the southern island of Kyushu. And I'm going to take you to Kyushu now. So Kyushu, here's a busy map, but the quick takeaways are that there's two light green areas, one in the north and one in the south, and those are the two gold provinces in Japan. In the north one, which is the less active area, there was a 1 million ounce past producer there, the Taiyo mine, and we have 3 projects in that area. But I'm going to focus you on the southern epithermal gold province, the southern Kyushu epithermal gold province, which is where the Hishikari mine is located. And I'm going to blow that up for you now. All right, so this showcases the recent acquisitions that we made in this southern Kyushu epithermal gold province. So to just orient you here, the Hishikari mine and the Sumitomo metal mining ground is in green. And a couple of other legacy mining areas are highlighted there as well. And all our project areas are in red. And this wasn't a staking rush by Japan Gold. This was a well thought out process of acquiring additional properties. To be clear, before this second staking rush, we already had this small project in the north, and we had this one project here covering 5 historic mines that were closed in 1943 in this general area. What we did was and this isn't rocket science, a lot of people could have thought about doing this, but we were able to access the government database and to start layering various levels of information, whether it was mapping, geophysics, other information. And then we started identifying where the 4 major high-grade mines that have been either past producers or the Hishikari mine were located. And what we ended up identifying was that there was very distinct similarities between all 4 locations. So then we went back and we did a very careful review of the whole province, and we said, you know, there's some thin volcanic cover here, but I wonder if there's any other locations that look just like the settings of those 4 mines. And indeed there was, and that's what all these areas are that we picked up. So we're very fortunate that we picked up the whole key concentration of those areas in that gold district. And again, over 11 million ounces of high-grade gold have been produced here. I should just step back a little bit. In this particular project, we do have one of our 2 drilling programs ongoing right now. We're just doing scout drilling, so we're testing the geology under shallow old mines that were closed in 1943. We're also doing geophysics as well. So we've got 4 scout holes drilling there. And I'll just move on. There's the 3 mines, the Ora, Takamine, and Arushi mines. The light pink areas is the historic mining, and the drill holes with the red dots at the top highlight the scout drill holes that we're drilling currently now. The yellow bar just indicates a level that we think there would be better gold accumulation between 200 and 250 meters below the surface. Definitely there's been high-grade mining in this area, up to 50 to 100 gram material in some of the chutes that have been mined here, so quite interesting. I'm now taking you all the way up to the north end of the country. So we've gone all, oops, sorry. we go. There we go. I'm going to take you from Kyushu all the way up to Hokkaido. Here we are on the island of Hokkaido. For your reference, Sapporo is under the labels here. So that's about 1.5 million people. Some of the best skiing in the world is in this general area, in Niseko. But really our focus is in this light green area, which is the Kitano metallogenic province. So this is the key gold mining area. The past producer was the Kitano Mine, which is situated right there, and that's also a Sumitomo metal mining asset, just like the Hishikari gold mine is in the south. This particular gold province has 2 gravens, and in those gravens we have picked up very significant project areas after quite a thorough analysis over a couple of years, and those are our projects that we've done extensive work on. I'm going to take you to the Kitano project here, which is one of the projects, and really our feature project where we're drilling right now up in Hokkaido. And that's just a blow-up of it. It's quite easy to get there, by the way. It's just an 1.5-hour flight up from Tokyo and an hour drive down a paved highway to get to our base, which is by the Kitano project area. So we have a base here that's fully operational. We've also bought 4 of our own diamond core drill rigs. We have our own complement of geologists, Japanese and expat drillers, our geologists, and then with our drill rigs, we brought in an international group for our own drilling division of 18 people. So we have quite an active drilling division. The Kitano project, this is a geology map, so a lot of people ask me if we're underwater. We're not. The takeaways on this particular slide are that this is about 200 square kilometers. The white labels are beside mine markings that indicate 17 high-grade underground gold mines or significant surface workings that were closed in 1943, have never been reopened. There's never been a drill hole, an exploratory drill hole put into any of these mines. So they've been in a time capsule since 1943. We've done extensive work across this whole project area, sampling, geophysics, etc., to really start identifying collections of mines that might be parts of large systems. And it's through that work and that activity that we've been able to attract Newmont Gold Corp, or Gold Corp originally, and then Newmont Gold Corp as a major shareholder, because they're seeing potentially Newmont-sized targets on our project areas. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus you on this particular red outline here. As an example, under this Kitano Gold District, as we call this area, there are actually 7 mines that circle around this buff-colored feature in the middle here, which is a rhyolitic dome. They're all part of one big system, and it runs about 6.5 kilometers north-south and about 5 kilometers east-west. And that's where we're drilling right now at the central mine, the Kitano Mine. Before I discuss the Kitano Mine, here's just some photos of grab samples we've taken from some of the mine dumps in that oval. Obviously, visible gold in the first one at high grade, and the classic epithermal and breccia textures that we're seeing throughout this area. I'll just move past these. This is an example of, well, actually, I'm going to move even farther beyond this. The Kitano Mine was a surface mine, and I don't have a couple of my favorite slides, which are photos or sketches of this old mine, but it was a mine at surface where prospectors in the early 1900s found a thick layer of sinter, this material here, which is horizontally bedded quartz lying across the top of a hill. It was a silica cap. But at the base of that, there was a thick layer of clay that was running 6 grams gold per ton. A gold rush occurred, 10,000 people moved to this area, and they built a 500-ton-a-day processing facility, big infrastructure, and they were scaling to 2,000 tons a day by 1943. 1943, all the miners got taken away, the mine was closed, and that was it. We're doing okay for time?
Yeah, you're all set.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, in any event, this area was abandoned after this wonderful discovery was made at surface. What we're focused on is how did the gold get to the surface? Where were the feeder zones that actually brought the gold up to surface, which would be quite rare in this instance. So if I look at the cross-section at the bottom here, this is the Kitano Hill, and to give you a perspective, it runs about 3 kilometers long, so it's a large system. We are focused on a drill program right now where the light purple dashed line shows you where the sinter was scraped off the top and where they got to the clay to get to the gold initially. And the red dots are the bottom hole positions of the projections of the holes that we're drilling now in scissors right through the guts of this hill to try and understand the geology in the hill. What we're also doing is we are also completing geophysics. We've done gravity, we're doing CSAMT, and significant sampling across the rest of this, this project area, where we found quite high grades as we've moved to the east, and we've announced those results as well. So the next phase is to permit right across the rest of the 3 kilometers and see where we go. Drilling results should be out by the end of the year, so I'm saying first week in January, we'll have the results of 6 holes, geophysics, and we should have a real understanding of where we're going with this particular project. I'm going to move past this. This is the one project that was on that island of Honshu, the long, thin island, and across on the west side from where Tokyo was located. This project is actually a whole gold field that we acquired, about 8 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, and had 7 historic mines on it, and that was a recent acquisition that we made as well. Our board is centered around Mitsuhiko Yamada. Mr. Yamada is my mentor in Japan. It has been for many years. He's our representing director there, and he's one of the most well-respected mining executives in Japan. Previously, he was the chief executive of Sumitomo Corporation, their global minerals division, and he was instrumental in funding, as an example, Bob Gallagher, one of our other directors, mine that he built as the leader of Newmont in Indonesia, the Batu Hijau mine, which was a $2 billion build, and $1 billion came from Sumitomo for that build. John Carlisle is also another key board member. He was previously the head of the BHP Global Gold Group. 30 years ago, under that auspices, they did a study across Japan, and he looked at the 64 closed mines, et cetera, for 7 months. But unfortunately, the government never opened up to allowing them to come in, so he moved on to become the president of Newcrest in Indonesia and the Philippines, and ultimately discovered a mine called Dasawang, if any of you are familiar with that, another 8 million ounce mine. Moving quickly to our executive team, Takashi Kuriyama, I'll focus you in on Takashi Kuriyama. When you turn 65 in Japan, you have to retire at Sumitomo Metal Mining. At that time, he was the head of global exploration for Sumitomo Metal Mining. He was also on the Tech Resources Board for the previous 10 years. And prior to that, he was the general manager and chief geologist of the Hishikari gold mine in Kyushu. So a welcome addition to our team for the last couple of years. 2 other people that support us, Doug Kerwin, who may be well known to a number of you, one of the top geologists in the world. He's the president of the Society of Economic Geologists and was the co-discoverer of Oyu Tolgoi with Robert Friedland in Mongolia. Steve Garwin, as maybe a little lesser known, but also globally very experienced, the head geologist for Newmont in Nevada for 10 years, the chief technical advisor to SolGold, and he was also the author of the 100th year anniversary of the Society of Economic Geologists paper on Japan with a well-esteemed professor in Japan. So our strengths are, we're the first mover in the country. We picked up an extraordinary portfolio to really dominate the country and its position. We've been able to attract the interest of a number of major international mining companies who are looking for safe geopolitical destinations. They're looking for high-grade underground gold opportunities, and we feel that we have those. We put a great team together. We're fully operational. We have an awful lot of experience in not only exploration, but also moving assets into production. Our share structure is as follows. Taking you to the oval at the bottom, management owns 26% of the company. We paid 40 cents a share for our shares, and today our shares traded about 35 cents. We have a public float that's a broadly distributed retail float of 30%. And our significant industry and international or institutional shareholders are made up as the list shows on the right-hand side. So Newmont Gold Corp at 16%. We've got RCF, the Opportunities Fund, with their 9% holding. The Japanese funds are actually managed by BlackRock. So BlackRock manages two $300 billion Japanese funds. So we're happy to have them with us. And then recent additions, Donald Smith, Libra, both from New York, and then Mackenzie here from Toronto. So we've got a great shareholder base, and we were very pleased to complete a recent financing that was $5 million financing, but was well oversold and really led by Red Cloud's great efforts So we ended up closing just over $7 million. So that is where the slideshow ends. And I'm happy to open up to any questions.
Well, we do have a minute left, so if there's a question from the crowd.
With the recent financing, what's your cash position now?
Yes, we have just over $6 million because we're getting down lower. So we've got about $6 million. That should carry us right through the next quarter, or the first quarter of 2020 and beyond. I think really our question is, what's the strategy for the company? And so a lot of people, say, are you a project generator? Are you a miner? What are you? Well, of course we're a project generator because we were the first in the country and we've generated 24 projects. Our plan is to keep 2 or 3 of those projects for ourselves. And because of all the very strong interest that we've got, to look at entering into one or several joint ventures to potentially advance the whole portfolio of projects forward. And that allows us to really focus our cash on our own projects and to use other groups' cash to do that. What the majors really like about us is because we're so operational in Japan and none of the international majors have any presence in Japan, they can get a really quick foothold there very easily and could see good progress.
Thank you.
One more question here.
I'm sorry to ask an elementary question.
Sure.
But let's say you find a great vein.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next step?
Sure.
After that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I'll just give you a little bit of background on that. So the Hishikari gold mine, which is the Sumitomo metal mining asset that's produced 7.6 million ounces, what they do is something very, very unique. They mine their ore, and the whole ore is direct shipped, about 90% of it, to a Sumitomo smelter. And the smelter needs that ore because the silica, or the quartz, is actually part of the smelting process. It's the flux in the smelting process. So that creates a wonderful opportunity, and the other 10% goes to a cyanide treatment plant. We've had a uncharacteristic for Japanese companies. A number of the major smelter companies approach us and say, look, if you're making a discovery and you're thinking about building a mine, we'd like to enter into life of mine contracts with you where we'll buy your ore, so you direct ship your ore to us. You'll have a much smaller environmental footprint. You'll have very low capex relative to building any production facilities. And we'll pay you for your waste effectively and give you 95% of your gold back, which on an IRR basis is an extraordinary calculation if you put all that together. So the good news is we've got a very supportive government that has welcomed us there. They've been very collaborative and very willing to sort of work with us as we've moved through this journey now. We've had a number of Japanese companies that I visit very regularly that are really taking note of what we're doing, because none of them have been in the exploration business. So they're standing on the sidelines, and we've got a number of other international companies that want to participate. So we're in a good position.
Thank you, John. Very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.